Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but life has a way of flipping itself upside down when you least expect it. I'm 33, and my soon to be ex wife Emily is 31. I think the backstory matters, so let me start at the beginning. It'll show you how we went from picture perfect to what feels like an absolute nightmare. Emily and I met 8 years ago at a 4th of July barbecue in Raleigh, North Carolina. My buddy Mike invited me, promising good food and good company. I wasn't feeling very social that day, but I went anyway, beer in hand and wearing a ridiculous stars and stripes shirt Mike dared me to buy. And and there she was, Emily, standing by the pool in a white sundress, sunglasses perched on her head, looking like she walked straight out of a magazine. I still remember her laugh, loud, magnetic, and totally unapologetic. I made some dumb joke about the burgers burning, and she laughed so hard she snorted. That moment, I was hooked. From then on, we were inseparable. I'll be honest, I always thought she was out of my league. Emily was stunning. Blonde hair, bright blue eyes, always the life of the party. She loved hosting, going out, and being surrounded by people. I was more of a laid back, stay at home kind of guy, but for some reason we just worked. Or at least I thought we did. Fast forward to now, no kids, no pets, just us living in our home in Cary, North Carolina. I work in tech, not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Emily, on the other hand, worked on and off as a freelance interior decorator. She was great at it, honestly, but she always had bigger dreams. A beach house in Florida, fancy cars, trips to the Maldives. I tried to tell her that life doesn't have to be about chasing the next big thing, but she'd just roll her eyes and call me boring. That being said, those words stung, but I let it go. I thought maybe she was just more ambitious than me, and that was okay. I loved her, and I truly believed she loved me too. That was our life. 6 years of marriage that I thought were decent. Sure, we argued, usually about money or how I wasn't fun enough, but I figured that was normal. Isn't that what marriage is sometimes? Turns out I was a fool. So, to pick up where I left off, Emily and I had been married for 6 years. On the surface, life seemed fine, but looking back now, the cracks were there. We lived in a nice two-story house in Cary, North Carolina, nothing over the top, but comfortable. I worked a stable 9 to 5 job in IT, earning a good salary, while Emily floated between projects as a freelance interior decorator. Some months she'd do really well, and other months, not so much. We weren't struggling, but Emily always seemed to want more. She was obsessed with social media influencers and their picture perfect lives. Massive homes, luxury cars, tropical vacations. I'd catch her scrolling through Instagram or Pinterest late at night, saving photos of Florida mansions and beach houses. She'd sigh loudly and say things like, "That's the life we should be living, Josh. Why don't you dream bigger?" The thing is, I was dreaming bigger. I just didn't tell her. I wanted to give her the life she dreamed about, but in my own way. I started saving money in secret, slowly, bit by bit, because I was determined to surprise her. I thought if I could get us that dream house in Florida, maybe she'd finally feel content. Maybe then she'd stop comparing her life to someone else's highlight reel. Despite her frustrations, I loved Emily. I wanted her to feel like the queen she believed she was. So for the past 3 years, I worked my ass off, picking up freelance tech jobs on the side, late nights, weekends, you name it. I never told her because I wanted that moment when I'd surprise her to be perfect. I could see it in my head, the look on her face when I told her I bought us a house in Sarasota, Florida. I imagined her throwing her arms around me, tears in her eyes, telling me how much she loved me and how happy she was. At this point, though, Emily and I weren't as close as we used to be. She was always busy, working on designs, going out with friends, or canceling our date nights at the last minute. "I'm not feeling well," she'd say, or "I have this big project deadline." I tried not to let it bother me. I figured it was just a phase. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? But trust is a funny thing, isn't it? Before I get to that, let me tell you about the surprise phase. I closed on the house, a beautiful two-story place just outside Sarasota, minutes from the beach. Couldn't wait to tell her. I planned the entire evening, dinner at her favorite restaurant, champagne chilling at home, and the big reveal. I saw the whole thing in my mind, Emily beaming, tears streaming, telling me it was everything she ever wanted. God, how wrong I was. Here's where everything started to unravel, though I didn't see it at the time. I planned the surprise for a Friday night. Emily had been in one of her moods all week, complaining about how dull our routine had become and how sick she was of Carrie. Same old stuff. I figured this house in Florida would fix everything. In my mind, I pictured us sitting on the beach, cocktails in hand, Emily finally content with the life I'd built for her. That Friday, I made reservations at her favorite steakhouse. It was fancy enough to feel like a celebration, but not so over the top that it raised suspicions. I told her I had good news to share, and for the first time in weeks, she actually looked excited. She wore this red dress I hadn't seen in years, curled her hair, and even kissed me on the cheek before we left. I remember thinking, this feels like the Emily I fell in love with. Dinner was perfect. For the first time in what felt like forever, we talked, we laughed. It was easy, natural. I thought, yeah, we're still us. This will fix everything. When dessert came, I slid an envelope across the table. Emily raised an eyebrow, smirking. What's this? Another tech gadget? Nope, I said, grinning. It's better. She opened the envelope. Inside was a printed picture of the house. Our house, 2 stories. White shutters, palm trees swaying in the yard. I watched her face as it clicked. Her eyes widened. And for the first time, she looked truly speechless. Josh, what is this? She stammered. It's our new house, in Sarasota. I bought it for us. We can move next month. I'll never forget her reaction because it wasn't what I expected at all. I thought she'd cry happy tears, leap out of her seat, maybe even squeal with excitement. Instead, she just stared at the picture, her face twisting into something I couldn't quite place. Shock, sure, but also something darker. After a long pause, she muttered, "You did this without asking me?" I blinked. "What do you mean? You've been talking for years about wanting a house in Florida." "I mean, yeah, but I don't know. Josh, moving, that's huge. It's a lot." I was stunned, completely floored. I'd spent years saving, working myself to the bone to give her what I thought was her dream, but instead of being happy, she looked annoyed, confused. I couldn't even tell. "Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I did this for you. I thought this would make you happy. Isn't this your dream?" She plastered on a fake smile. Yeah, it's great. You're right. I'm just overwhelmed. That's all." The rest of the night felt like a slow motion car wreck. She barely touched her champagne, and on the drive home, she stared out the window in total silence. I had to stop myself and ask myself, why are you doing this? I kept glancing over, searching for a hint of excitement, a flicker of that smile I'd imagined, but it never came. Looking back now, that was the first sign. That was the moment I should have realized something was deeply wrong. But I didn't. I chalked it up to Emily needing time to process such a big change. I figured she'd come around. After all, I'd given her exactly what she wanted, hadn't I? After that night, something just shifted. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like someone flipped a switch in Emily. She was distant, almost robotic, giving me these fake smiles and polite nods whenever I brought up the house. But it was obvious her mind was somewhere else. I tried not to take it personally. I told myself she was overwhelmed, maybe nervous about such a big change. Hell, I was nervous too, but I thought it was the good kind of nervous. The excitement of starting fresh, of chasing something new together. For the next few weeks, I threw myself into preparing for the move. I wanted to take all the pressure off her, so I handled everything. Talking to movers, organizing her finances, even scouting Sarasota for restaurants, shops, and parks I knew she'd love. I imagined her walking through that front door and feeling like I'd thought of everything. But Emily? She wasn't there. Not really. She started working late more often in some big decorating project, apparently. But when she'd come home, it wasn't with paint swatches and design samples. It was the smell that got me. Wine and expensive perfume. Not the kind of scent you wear for work. No. It was the kind of perfume you put on for a fancy dinner, maybe a night out. I asked her about it once. "Where exactly is this Project M. You haven't told me much about it. She froze for just a second, rarely enough to catch, before turning to me with this icy stare. Why are you suddenly so interested in my work? You never cared before. That hit me like a gut punch. I'd been killing myself to make her happy. And she said that? I tried to apologize to play it off like I was just curious, but she was already walking away. She went straight to bed and slammed the door behind her. Over the next few weeks, it only got worse. Emily had always been glued to her phone, but now it was constant. She'd hold it close, typing furiously or smirking at something on the screen like it was the funniest thing in the world. And every time I walked into the room, up, screen down. Almost comical, really, if it hadn't been so damn unsettling. I told myself I was overthinking it. I still trusted her. She was my wife, the same woman I fell for at that barbecue, the same woman I'd built my life around. But then came the moment I couldn't ignore. It was a Tuesday morning. Emily had already left for one of her design meetings, and I was working from home. I needed to print out a contract, but my printer had been acting up. I noticed Emily's laptop sitting open on the kitchen counter, and I figured, why not? I'd print it from there. That was the moment everything changed. Her email was still open. I didn't mean to look, I swear I didn't, but something caught my eye. A subject line. Just 3 words. Can't wait tonight. And right there, staring at me from the screen, was a message that tore my entire world apart, I swear. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't sit down with the intention of snooping. I just needed to print a stupid PDF, and Emily's laptop was already open. But when I sat down, I saw her email, her personal email, sitting right there on the screen. I don't know what made me look. Maybe it was that nagging feeling I'd been pushing down for weeks. Maybe it was the tension I could feel, thick and heavy, in every room we shared. Or maybe it was just dumb luck, but I looked. And that's when my entire world flipped upside down. The first thing I noticed was a string of unread messages from a name I didn't recognize. Derek K. My stomach dropped as I scanned the subject lines. One of them made my heart stop. Can't stop thinking about last night. My chest tightened and my hands felt shaky as I clicked the message. Maybe for some stupid reason, I hoped there'd be an innocent explanation. Maybe it really was just a work dinner or a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It was exactly what I feared. The email was short, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. Last night was amazing. You're incredible. Wish I could wake up next to you every morning. Let me know when we can meet again. Attached was a photo of Emily, my wife. She was smiling, sitting on the edge of a bed in what was clearly a hotel room. I recognized the necklace around her neck. I'd given it to her last Christmas. I felt like the air had been ripped out of my lungs, but it didn't stop there. I clicked back to her inbox and scrolled. There were more. Emails from other men, Adam W., Troy B., Chris H. Derek was just the tip of the iceberg. Some of the messages went back weeks. Others were from just days ago. And in every one of them, she talked about me, about how boring I was, about how I never lived up to her standards, how I was so predictable and lacking ambition. One message hit me harder than the rest. A guy, Adam, asked her why she didn't just leave me already. Emily's response is something I'll never be able to erase from my mind. Josh is stable. He pays the bills. I need him for now. For now. Those 2 words echoed in my head like a drumbeat. I felt like I had been punched over and over. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the screen. I read everything. Every disgusting message, every lie, every complaint. It was like peeling back layers of something rotten. The truth just kept getting worse. She'd been meeting these men for months, maybe even years. Some messages hinted at their next plans to meet up. Others were explicitly sexual, the kind of stuff I wish I could unsee. And then, as if the universe just wanted to twist the knife deeper, I saw one email that made me feel physically sick. How's the Florida house coming along? Maybe I'll help you christen it. I wanted to throw up. My chest burned, my head pounded, but my body felt completely numb. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd built my life around, the woman I'd sacrificed for, had been treating me like a safety net, a backup plan, all while chasing strangers for her excitement and thrill. I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, I wanted to break something, but instead I just sat there, frozen, staring at the screen as my entire world came crashing down around me. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the screen. Minutes, hours, time didn't feel real anymore. A part of me wanted to slam the laptop shut, shove this whole nightmare out of my mind, and pretend I hadn't seen any of it. I wanted to tell myself it was all a bad dream, some horrible misunderstanding. But the other part of me, the rational, angry part, knew better. I needed answers. I deserved to know just how deep this betrayal ran. So I kept digging. Her email had been bad enough, but then I noticed something else. There were tabs still open in her browser. One of them was Facebook. The other, a chat window from some sketchy dating site I didn't even recognize. My stomach dropped like a rock. I clicked the tab. There it was, in plain sight, her profile. Username, Blonde Sunshine 88, age 31. Status, married but complicated. Married but complicated. The words felt like a slap across the face. The audacity, the cruelty. I clicked into her messages, and that's when I felt like my brain short-circuited. Dozens, no, hundreds of conversations. Different men, different names. And these weren't just innocent chats. They were explicit, detailed, stuff I wish I could unsee. She told these guys everything. How she felt trapped in a boring marriage. How I didn't satisfy her emotionally or sexually. I scrolled further, and one message caught my eye. Why stay with him if he's so lame? Her response burned itself into my memory. Because he's dependable. He doesn't ask questions. But I get bored, you know. I sat back in the chair, my chest heaving like I'd just run a marathon. It was like I didn't even know her anymore. Like the woman I loved had been replaced by someone else. Someone cruel and calculated. And it wasn't just online flings. No, she talked about meeting up with these guys in person. Finally, hotels, bars, dinners. One guy, Troy, asked, when can we sneak away again? Again. That one word shattered me. I slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing through the empty house. My hands were shaking, my pulse pounding in my ears. I just sat there, staring at the wall like it might have answers. My heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to see red. I wanted to scream, to yell, to punch a hole in the wall. I wanted to confront her the second she walked through the door. But then I stopped. I forced myself to take a breath, shaky and ragged, but enough to clear my head. I knew if I confronted her now, she'd twist it. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of violating her privacy, and somehow I'd end up being the bad guy. I needed proof. Something undeniable. Something she couldn't lie her way out of. That's when the idea hit me. I'd create a fake Facebook account. If she was so desperate for excitement, so eager to find someone new, maybe she'd take the bait. Maybe I'd finally see just how far she was willing to go. I won't lie, just thinking about it made me feel sick. It felt like something out of a bad movie. But at that moment, I didn't care. I had to know. I needed to see the truth for myself. I needed to know exactly who I'd been married to all these years. I spent the rest of the day pacing, shaking, and trying not to lose my mind. My thoughts raced with everything I'd seen on that laptop. The emails, the messages, the lies. It felt like my world was crumbling and I couldn't hold it together. But I couldn't confront her. Not yet. I knew Emily too well. She'd spin it. She'd call me crazy, accuse me of spying on her, twist everything around until somehow I became the bad guy. No, I needed her to dig her own grave. So I sat down at my computer and got to work. It didn't take much effort to set up a fake Facebook account. I created a man named Jake Thompson, an average guy in his early 30s, good looking but not too perfect. I found some stock photos online that looked natural enough and set up the profile, public enough to be believable. Then I sent a friend request to my wife. 2 hours later, she accepted. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. From there, it was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I started small. I liked a couple of her photos, pictures I'd never seen before, by the way. She was wearing outfits I didn't recognize, taken in places I'd never been. Then I sent her a message. Hey, I know this is random, but you popped up in my suggestions. Thought I'd say hi. You seem cool. I didn't know if she'd respond or how quickly, but Emily being Emily, she replied within minutes. Lol. Hi, Jake. Random, but I like random. Where are you from? I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. My wife, sitting a room away, chatting up a man she thought was a stranger. I forced myself to stay calm, to play the part. I responded casually, just enough to keep her hooked. Over the next few days, Jake came to life. Single guy, works in construction, loves to travel. Carefree, exciting. Everything Emily claimed I wasn't. And she ate it up. She poured her heart out to him, complaining about her complicated marriage and how her husband was nice but boring. She said she wanted more out of life: passion, adventure, someone who understands me. Every word felt like a knife to my chest. But I kept going. By the end of the week, I knew it was time to push things further. I sent her a message that still makes me shake with anger when I think about it. You're too beautiful to be stuck in a boring marriage. We should meet. I'll treat you like you deserve. Eh? Champagne? Candles? The works. Her response came almost immediately. LOL, you're trouble, Jake, but okay. Tell me when and where. She didn't hesitate, not even for a second. Stared at the screen, stunned. My wife, the woman I'd spent years building a life with, the woman I had just bought a house for, was ready to meet a stranger for a romantic night. I set the date for the following Friday night. I picked a hotel far enough out of town that she'd have to make plans for it. I told her I'd book a suite with a view, promising her a night she wouldn't forget. And she loved it. She started asking what she should wear, if I liked surprises. Surprises. The irony wasn't lost on me. The rage I felt was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. My body felt like it was on fire, but I kept my cool. I knew this was my moment. Emily thought she was meeting her exciting new Jake Thompson. But what she didn't know was that her husband, the man she'd been lying to, betraying, and mocking, would be the one waiting for her instead. The man she'd been lying to, betraying, and mocking would be the one waiting for her instead. I had 1 week to get everything ready. The days leading up to Friday felt like a cruel joke, like time itself was punishing me for what I knew. I could barely look at Emily without my stomach twisting in knots. Every fake smile she threw my way, every kiss on the cheek, every casual comment about her busy schedule made me want to scream. It was all a lie. She was a lie. Meanwhile, she spent the week glued to her phone more than ever, her fingers tapping out messages to Jake while giggling like a teenager. I let her have her fantasy. I let her believe she was getting away with it because I knew what was coming. And while she was busy planning her special night, I was preparing for mine. First, I booked the hotel suite. Under my name, of course. I made sure everything was perfect. Champagne chilling in a bucket, candles set up on the table, and just for fun, I hung a sign on the wall. Welcome to Florida. Old jab to remind her of everything she'd thrown away. Next, I packed my laptop, clothes. She wasn't running off with a single dime of my money after this. And I contacted a lawyer. By the time she realized what had happened, the divorce papers would already be on their way. Finally, Friday arrived. That morning, Emily was practically glowing. She hummed to herself as she got ready, smiling at her reflection in the mirror. Before leaving, she kissed me on the cheek. Love you, babe, she said, her voice sugary sweet. I forced a smile and looked her dead in the eye. Love you too. And I meant it. But not in the way she thought. The second she walked out the door, I sprang into action. I packed up the last of my things, loaded the truck, and headed straight to the hotel. I checked in early, set the scene. Candles, champagne, everything, and hung the Welcome to Florida sign where she couldn't miss it. And then I waited. At 6 p.m., I got the text I'd been expecting. Working late again? Don't wait up. That wink emoji made me shake with rage, the audacity. She thought I was sitting at home, clueless, like some pathetic fool. But I wasn't at home. I was here, waiting for her. The next 2 hours crawled by. I must have rehearsed what I was going to say 1,000 times in my head. What would I say first? Would I yell? Would I stay calm? A small part of me wondered if she'd even show. Maybe she'd sensed something was off. Maybe she'd cancel. But at exactly 8:23 p.m., I heard footsteps outside the door. My pulse shot through the roof. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. The handle turned. The door swung open. And there she was. Ah. Emily stepped into the room like she owned the place, wearing a short black dress that clung to her in all the right places. Her heels clicked against the floor as she walked in, her hair done to perfection. She looked around, that fake, sultry smile plastered on her face. She was expecting Jake. Her eyes met mine instead. Time froze. First, there was confusion, like her brain couldn't process what she was seeing. Then, shock. Pure, unfiltered shock. And finally, panic. Her face turned pale as she stumbled back like she'd just seen a ghost. "Josh!" she gasped, her voice trembling. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there, calm, hands in my pockets, letting her take it all in. The Welcome to Florida sign behind me flapped lightly in the breeze from the AC. She looked like she couldn't breathe. What is this?" she stammered, her voice cracking. I smiled, a real smile. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt like myself. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Welcome to Florida, Emily. Thought you'd enjoy the surprise." For a moment, it was like time froze. Emily just stood there in the doorway, clutching her purse like it might somehow save her. Her eyes darted around the room, at the champagne, the candles, the ridiculous Welcome to Florida sign, before finally landing back on me. I could see the gears turning in her head, desperately trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Her voice broke the silence, high-pitched and shaky like a kid caught stealing. "Josh, what, what are you doing here?" I didn't move. I didn't yell. I didn't give her the reaction she probably expected. I just stared at her, calm and cold. "That's funny. I was about to ask you the same thing, Emily. Who exactly were you expecting?" Her face went pale. She opened her mouth to say something, then snapped it shut. I watched her try to pull herself together, forcing out this weak, nervous laugh. Because that's what Emily did when she got caught. She tried to laugh it off. This is some kind of joke, right? Are you pranking me? Is Mike in on this?" I shook my head slowly. "No joke, Emily. No prank. I know everything." My face fell from her face like a mask slipping off. "Everything? Oh yeah, I know about Derek, and Adam, and Troy, and Chris." I listed their names like I was reading off a grocery list, watching as her face turned redder and redder with every word. "I know about the emails, the chats, the hotel meetups. Hell, I even know about this little rendezvous you planned with Jake." I gestured around the room. "You like it? Champagne and candles. It's like you wanted." Her purse slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a thud. She stared at me, her eyes wide with panic. How did you?" "I saw your laptop," I cut her off. My voice was cold and steady. "You really should be more careful with your passwords." Her mouth opened and closed again, like she wanted to deny it but couldn't find the words. She looked like she was about to cry, and for the first time in this entire marriage, I didn't care. I didn't feel sorry for her. "You lied to me," I said, my voice quiet but sharp enough to cut through the air. I took a step closer. "You lied to my face for months, maybe even years, and I trusted you. I loved you." My voice cracked on the last part, and I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop it. "I gave you everything, Emily. I even bought you the damn house in Florida that you wanted so badly." That seemed to shake her. She straightened up, panic spilling into her voice. "Josh, I can explain. It's not what you think. I wasn't serious about those guys. I was just bored. I didn't mean bored." I barked out a laugh. It sounded bitter, even to my own ears. Tears started streaming down her face, her mascara leaving black streaks along her cheeks. She stepped forward, reaching for me with trembling hands. "Josh, please." You have to believe me. I love you. You're my husband. I stepped back, shaking my head slowly. No, Emily, you don't love me. You loved what I could give you: security, a house, stability. But you know what? You don't get to have that anymore. Her lip quivered. What does that mean? She whispered, her voice barely audible. It means it's over, I said flatly, letting the words sink in. I've already talked to a lawyer. I froze our accounts. I've packed my things, and by the time you get home, I'll be gone. And you'll get nothing. Her face crumpled. She stumbled back like I'd physically hit her. No, you can't do this, Josh. We can fix this. I'll change. I swear. I shook my head again. No, you won't. You've been lying to me for years, Emily, and the worst part is, you didn't even feel bad about it. She dropped onto the edge of the bed, sobbing into her hands, her shoulders shaking. I watched her cry, but the part of me that might have once felt sympathy was gone. She'd killed it. I'd spent weeks, months, maybe years, feeling broken while she carried on like nothing was wrong. I grabbed my keys off the table and turned to leave. I paused at the door and looked back one last time. She was still sitting there, mascara running, sobbing into her palms. Goodbye, Emily, I said quietly. Enjoy your champagne. And then I walked out. The door clicked shut behind me, muffling the sound of her crying. I stood in the hallway for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on me. My heart was pounding, but for the first time in a long time, I felt clear. I felt free. I drove away from that hotel with my hands steady on the wheel, and I didn't look back. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still there, I really appreciate you for that. Please subscribe and check my other stories. See ya.